Hello, all my feuders out there in fantasy land. Good to have you back for week 3. We got 2 in the books. Um, Need to talk to you about something this week. A little bit of league business. Um, now that we're on a group text together and we can share our instantaneous thoughts and send it out there uh, instantaneously, all of us like we're in the same room together. Sometimes things get said, and uh, sometimes people cross the line. And I know everybody wants to win a championship. Um, Everybody wants to win a cat daddy. But you know what? It's not about wins and losses. It's not about any awards that you can share with everybody and brag. It's not about bragging rights. It's about the journey. It's about the family time together. It's about all of us coming together. And you know what? It's about climbing that mountain and achieving a goal personally. No need to get cross. No need to throw mud. These are personal journeys. It's it's almost like a bull. But you got to grab that bull by the horns and turn that bull around. Say, bull, I'm not going to take it anymore. You got to reach back. You got to punch that bull right in the face to achieve your goals. Cat Daddy's kind of the same way. It's not about being in an elite group. It's not about hoisting anything. It's not about rubbing anybody's face in it. It's about doing the right thing by each other. It's about sticking together. That's why we call it the family. The family's bigger than the feud. I want you all to remember that as we go forward in this league. Let's get into the picks. Well, this is what we got here. We got the newest member in the league, his first year against our 3-time champ, 2-time defending. Dirte comes into the Gangstas, and let's start with Dirte. This team has some potential. It made his first, what I think, real quality move, picking up Cam Newton. Cam looks like he's going to be a huge part of the Carolina offense this year, and I think that he'll be a mainstay in Dirte's lineup moving forward, especially if he keeps running the ball. The way that's what made him such a huge fantasy force in the past, and it looks like they're going to that again, and they're letting him play his game. They're not trying to keep him in the pocket. He's got some potential at running back with Yeldon and Forte. That's a nice 1-2 punch. The thing with Dirte is that he has a massive hole in his lineup with his tight end. Kobe Fleener, 2 weeks in a row. He has 1 catch for 5 yards on the season. You just can't do that in this league. You can't have that kind of holes. Other owners are too good at putting lineups together, and that's something he's going to have to get fixed, whether it's through help from me or his mentor or him just diving in and doing it. He's got plenty of money. He can go out there and get that fixed. If he does, he can put a good lineup in there and challenge on a week-to-week basis. Gangsta, he's kind of sliding around, 1-1, waiting to get healthy, and boom, looky here. His hammer comes back. Le'Veon Bell back in the lineup. And that just makes him more dangerous than he is. He's probably got the sweetest same-team combo in Ryan to Julio. Those two, the double points that they put up every time they hit really help in any given week. He's still searching for a number 2 RB and a number 2 wide receiver. And if Lamar Miller comes on and gets healthy, Blakester is going to be right back to where he is. This week, I think this game's going to be a little closer than maybe tradition says it's going to be. But until I see some lineup changes, this is what I got. Orange Crush at Dreadheads. After the draft, if I would have told you one of these teams was 2-0 and one of them was 0-2, would we have picked it the way that it is? Probably not. But here we sit with Crush 2-0 and Dreadheads at 0-2. Talking about the Crush team here, I think it's a good example for us in Fantasyland. We fall in love with the publications and what the prognosticators want us to hear and who they want to promote, but that's not always the case of who's producing. I look at somebody like Eric Ebron in their lineup. He's averaging double digits. Whether it's sustainable or not, we'll find out. But he's been in the lineup for 2 weeks and he's produced. This team's getting carried by the wide receivers, no doubt about it. Antonio Brown he's the best number. He's the number one fantasy player, um, especially at that position. Huge advantage for her. Emmanuel Sanders picking right up where he left off last year, even with Peyton Manning being down. This team's winning even without any running back play to speak of so far. Even though they're getting the carries, they haven't gotten in the end zone. If that happens, look out. Big blow last week with Romo going down. As of this video, still no quarterback in the Crush lineup, so I really can't say what's going to go. But there is some good stuff out there, and she should be able to recover on that. Hey, Dreadhead's team, that team is nothing but big names, especially with the introduction of Peyton Manning. And this is kind of a neat juxtaposition here with Peyton Manning going up against Crush. Everybody thought that maybe Peyton would end up on the Crush squad for his swan song. That hasn't happened. Dreadheads goes out there and gets him, decides, hey, I need to make a change at the quarterback position with Bradford just stinking up the joint. Lynch hasn't gotten going. Murray hasn't gotten going. So, that's a hornet's nest right there. These are all really good players that are going to get stirred up at some point. Whether this is the week or not, I don't know. Amari Cooper and Odell Beckham Jr., that's going to be a nice 1-2 punch. And Kelsey, that's really strong in the receiving core there for Dreadheads. But does the hornet nest get stirred up this week? Here's what the ball says about it. Well, what do we have here? We've got maybe the best shit-talking matchup of the week. Nerd Puppets at Boats and Hose. I'm sure these two are going to be going back and forth. Have been a little bit already. I'm surprised it hasn't been more. Honestly, maybe it's just Thursday. We'll see as it ramps up during the week. Starting with the Nerd Puppets, sitting at 1-1, middle of the pack in scoring, maybe upper middle. Anytime your team starts with Aaron Rodgers and Adrian Peterson, though, you got to like your shot. The thing I notice about this squad, though, is the depth of the Nerd Puppet squad. Really deep at running back, even though we can't really see it yet. I think it's going to play out over the course of the year, especially through bye weeks, probably later into the year. But when you got Ivory, Abdullah, and Tevin Coleman, who's been a really nice surprise for the Falcons, on the bench, and you can plug in Peterson and Isaiah Crowell, who had a good week last week, that's saying something about your team. Interesting looking lineup from the Puppets. Not afraid to get off the reservation and go with some gut feelings about what he thinks the games are going to do. Allen Robinson, really nice pickup there. Huge week last week. It's going to be the number one guy. You wonder how Belichick's going to plan against him. But he should be fine going forward, and I think he's going to be steady every week. And as we saw last week, he can put up a monster game. Boats proclaimed to everybody, 0-2 start, not good for him. Good franchise. He's had some really great years with the league. Never won a championship, obviously, as we discussed earlier. But he's worked hard to revamp his lineup this week. Spent all of his waiver wire money. I think it may come back to haunt him. We'll see. If he thought that now was the time to hit the panic button, and he went out and got Dion Lewis and Larry Fitzgerald. Now, whether Fitzgerald cracks the lineup this week, I don't know. That's an awful lot of money to spend for a backup. But with Brandon Marshall and Julian Edelman, those guys are pretty consistent producers right now, so how do you set them down? Russell Wilson has not done really anything yet. Neither have the Seahawks, though. 0-2. But they get to go back home and they get to face the hapless Bears defense. So if he's going to get right, you got to think that this is the week. I would imagine that if Wilson doesn't get it done for Boats this week, that he might be on a short leash with that team. LaShawn McCoy hasn't really got cranked up. So the thing I'm worried about with as much money as he spent, as good as Dion Lewis has looked, it's still Bill Belichick, and he could just as easily sit and watch Blunt grind out 30 carries. And if you've ever been on Belichick's running back roller coaster as a fantasy owner, you know what I'm talking about. So if he can keep Lewis in there for the majority of the snaps, that would be huge for this team, because that offense at New England is absolutely explosive. So, and he's catching balls out of the backfield. As far as breaking this week down, I think this is going to be a good week. But the ball's really going to call it this way. and this is how it goes. Hey, good looking matchup here with our farthest of the West against our farthest of the East. And two old dudes, Crimson Rain at Triple T's. Um, Crimson exploding last week, coming on the scene with, I think, 105 points or such. Carson Palmer absolutely looks great. Arizona looks great across the board. Couple of moves this week from Crimson. Went out and picked up the rookie Matt Jones. We get to see him tonight on Thursday night, getting the split carries with Alfred Morris. How much he sees going forward, we don't know yet, but hey, he certainly looked really good. And Morris isn't a spring chicken, so if Jones can carve out his share of the carries there, that Washington run game is really good. Now Jeremy Hill, he's going to have to keep an eye on that. Fumbling issues kind of in Marvin Lewis's doghouse. Giovanni Bernard stepped in as a fine replacement in Cincinnati, so two super talented backs though for Crimson. Calvin Johnson is Calvin Johnson. Enough said. Terrence Williams, now the undisputed number one in Cowboy land, should get to show it off against Atlanta. If Whedon can do his thing and pump the ball downfield, Williams might be a super play. Really like him this week. I think he's actually going to have a really good week. Crimson looking strong across the board. Triple T's coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Winos. Great game, high-scoring game. Triple T's down by 10 going into the last night with two Packers left to play. Thought he had it in the bag, and they both go down with ankle injuries. So sitting at 1-1 and still really banged up going into this week. Did make a move to get T.Y. Hilton to replace an injured Jeffries, but T.Y. Hilton's hurt as well. Carlos Hyde's still dealing with injuries, and Eddie Lacy's still dealing with injuries. We don't know how it's going to go. This team looks good going forward, but you can dig yourself a hole early in the season in this league. It's hard to get out, and we've all been there where it comes down to playoff time, and it comes down to a tiebreak or a one-game difference between getting in and not getting in. So that remains to be seen. But this ought to be a good game. Roethlisberger has been stellar for Triple T's, and Gronkowski can keep him in just about any game that he plays in. So it's really all about the health this week, but the injury bug has jumped up and bit the Triple T's, and that Crimson's going to be playing on that this week. So the ball sees it this way. Game of the week, bitches. All right, game of the week's coming to us from Oklahoma City between two good buddies that watch a lot of football and talk a lot of football. We'll start with True Blue. Very fortunate to be sitting at 2-0 and tied for the division lead with the Colts stinking so bad. They're sitting at 0-2, but True Blue's sitting at 2-0. He's got a lot invested in them with Luck, Gore, and Moncrief. Moncrief looking like he's going to be a nice addition to that team. Winos, the strong get stronger. Adding James Jones to this mix, Latavius Murray starting to emerge, and then you throw that in with stalwarts of Brady, Charles, and Demarius. This team's looking really good, looking like the best team in the league, scoring like the best team in the league. For game of the week, it's going to come down to whether or not the Colts can get off the snide against Tennessee, and this is how the ball sees it. Swami is out!